So we go on, you know, it's hard. You learn to deal with it. It gets better as time goes on. Little bits and pieces started popping out. The detectives would call me and say, well, we found this out and we found that out. Well, they had to properly ID her, and they had an old ID that was from Indiana from years and years ago that they found. She was living homeless down there. Right, and they have huge homeless encampments down in Florida. And it's just big, huge wooded areas where all these people that are, they either have some sort of addiction or they lose their job and they just quit on life. And they go to these encampments, and it's like a big, huge campground. And they have everything they need. So that's what she was doing, and run across the wrong guy. So bits and pieces is coming back, and the detective tells me, you know, we really need to properly ID your mom, even though we have that ID, it's expired. And was talking about wanting to send a blood sample of mine so they could do a DNA testing against my mom, because if it was my mom, she would have half my DNA. And they would be able to ID her through that way. That terrified me. Because I'm sitting here thinking, my blood's going to stamp my mom's death certificate. That's not cool. That's not cool at all. That sucks. Well, thank goodness she had gotten in a fight a couple months prior and had to go up to Georgia and have her jaw x-rayed, so they had dental records. And the detectives did awesome work and was able to get a hold of those x-rays and was able to use the dental so that I didn't have to stamp my mom's death certificate with my own blood. So that was an achievement. You know, that was a relief. So then they're talking to me. They sign what they call a victim's advocate to you. And the job of this victim's advocate is to keep you informed of what's going on with the case. They found the guy. He was a 24-year-old. His birthday was the same day as mine, a year later. They caught him on our birthday. So he confessed. He ended up confessing. They took him, they played a nice little trick on him and took him into the evidence room of all three of these women where they had all this evidence everywhere on the rocks and just everything they had found, and took him in there. So he thought, I'm hit. So he started confessing. So now they had a confession. So now we have the guy that killed my mom. You know, I'm ecstatic. I'm like, yay, this is a good thing. You know, he can pay for his crime now. And the victim's advocate wanted me to come down for the trial. They give that option to all victims. The state of Florida pays for the hotel room, part of your food, stuff like that. I had never been out of the tri-state area. I had never been away from my kids, or my husband for that matter. So here I sit, and I was going to have to be off work for a month. I'm in school to become a nurse, and I'm overwhelmed because I'm like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to pull this off? We can't afford for me to not be working for a month. I'm in school. This is totally going to make me take 500 steps back on my dream. But at the same time, I was fighting the battle of, well, somebody needs to be my mom's voice. Because my mom didn't have anybody either, just like I did. So after talking with my family and everything, I decided I was going to go down for the trial. So I drove from Indiana to Stuart, Florida for the trial. I was down there for 34 days. And, you know, in the process of making this decision, I had to stare the man that killed my mom in the face. I have to look at him. I have to be able to control myself. Because I wanted to kill him. I had a lot of unanswered questions. A lot of questions that detectives didn't have answers to. They didn't have DNA. They had nothing linking him to the crimes other than other people saying he was the last one seen with those 3 girls. So it was going to be a very difficult case for prosecution to be able to prevent, you know, to say, hey, he's, you know, this is all we have. We don't have DNA. This ain't CSI. So I went down. I took off of school. I was working at a nursing home called Ripley Crossing as a CNA over in Milan. I had been there for a while, and we had a really awesome group of people we worked with. We were like one big family over there. And they did a bunch of fundraisers to help raise money to give me, so there would be less of a financial impact on my family for when I went down there. And the money, they raised enough money I didn't have to worry about anything while I was down there. And that was awesome, because I had never seen people be that generous and give of themselves. Not just their time, but they did yard sales, they did all kinds of bake sales, you know, to do something nice for me. And so that was huge in my life, had a huge impact on me and made me want to be more of that type of person. So I go down to Florida, we go into the trial and everything, and media is just swarming, and I have to deal with all this. I had never dealt with none of this before. It was like I was a celebrity down there. It was goofy. All over because this man killed my mom. I had to go through the autopsy photos because I didn't want to leave the courtroom, because I felt even if I left for that 15 minutes while they showed my mom's autopsy photos and crime scene footage to the jurors, I was going to miss out on something. I would question those 15 minutes for the rest of my life, and I didn't want that. So I had went over to the police department, and they allowed me to go in and look at the photos that they were going to use in court, because I didn't want the man that killed my mom to see me break down. Because I was like, oh no, I'm stronger than that. I'm not giving him that satisfaction to know he's getting to me too when he already got to my mom. I ain't giving him that satisfaction. It ain't happening. I'm stronger than that. I can handle this. And that's what I kept telling myself the whole time I was down there. I can do this. I'm a strong enough, independent woman. I can handle this. I got this. It's going to be rough. It's going to suck, but I can do it. So I looked at the autopsy photos and, you know, went into court. I had to take the stand and basically tell them I was able to share with the jury the type of woman my mom was before the alcoholism, before her addiction took over her life. And the whole time, I stared that man in his face. I didn't leave eye to eye from him. And that was me. I wanted to do that. Not everybody would be able to do that in that situation. But I wanted him to know, you don't scare me. I don't fear you, and you're not going to bring me down. So I took the stand, said what I needed to say, and I got off. The jurors found him guilty on all 3 cases. And then we had to go through what they call the penalty phase. And in the penalty phase, I was pretty much allowed to say whatever I wanted. I could have called him every name in the book. I could have downed him. I could have disgraced him. Nobody could stop me at that point, because he'd already been found guilty. And I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And pretty much the only thing I had said was, I know my mom. And my mom would have forgiven him. And that's pretty much all I said. You know, because that's the type of person my mom was. She probably would have understood his problems. He also came from an alcoholic family. He was abused. He was in the system. He had problems of his own. And my mom was that type of person that she would have been able to understand where he was coming from. And granted, it wasn't right for him to take her life by any means, for whatever reason he did. But my mom still would have forgiven him. So I took, I stepped down, and he got the death penalty for all 3 cases. He's sitting on death row right now, waiting to be executed. He's gone through all his appeals, because once you get to go through appeals and say, well, the defense attorneys didn't do this and they didn't do that, and pick apart the case of all the negative and what they didn't do, and he wasn't represented right. He's gone through all his appeals, so his ultimate ending is going to be lethal injection. The average stay is 15 years on death row. So if they execute him within that 15th year that he's supposed to be executed, he will die at the same age he killed my mother, 43. So I have come about, I come back home, and it's hard, it's hard getting back into it. I think about her, I struggled. Did she see it coming? Did she struggle? Did she fight back? What was going through her mind while this man was killing her? Those are all things I struggled long and hard with. I'd cry myself to sleep at night. Sometimes I'd wake up in a panic, anxiety, sweating, rocking back and forth. And my poor husband over here, the sheltered man with the perfect little home life, he had no way of knowing how to help me. He'd never been through anything like that. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to console me. And he felt helpless, because here's his wife suffering, and there's nothing he can do to help her. And it's just one of those things you gotta do it on your own. You go through the grieving process. And as time went on, I've healed from it. As you see, I can talk about it. I don't break down in tears because it was a huge learning experience. Granted, it was a sad, sad situation because I had lost my mother. But at the same time, I had learned so much from the people that had gave to me to help me get down there. The people that worked the case, the detectives, the prosecution, it took them 2 years. 2 years. She was murdered in 2004. It was 2006 before he went to trial. 2 years these people took their time away from their families, their kids, their life, and put all their energy into the case to make it against this man to bring him to justice for a woman they never even knew. And that spoke volumes to me. It just opened my eyes completely. And while I was down there, they had some evidence of some belongings of my mom's. I have them on my hand now. There are 2 rings that she had on her when they found her. And I went down and I got them. And I've never taken them off. You can see, if you want later, the invasion of the rings on my finger. And that's so I have my mom with me all the time. So I don't forget that I'm strong, I'm independent. I was smart enough to change my life around, and I was able to succeed. And that's what those rings represent to me. I can do it. It's going to be a hard road. It's going to be long while I'm doing it, but I will survive. So I come back, I go to school. Long trip and road through nursing school, let me tell you. Stressful, lots of studying. I basically kissed my family and my friends goodbye for 2 years. Because that's what it took. It's rough. And we struggled financially. We had my in-laws that was helping us out tremendously. I had a good support system. My girls were there. My oldest would help me with studying and so on and so forth. So here I sit today after the long road that I've had and the life that I've come from. I'm a registered nurse. I love my job. I have 2 beautiful girls who are AR enroll and AD students. Both are in activities of school, volunteers, and I have a wonderful husband. We own a house. Life couldn't be any better. So what I want you to take away from this today is no matter where you come from, no matter what kind of childhood you had, no matter what kind of parents you've had, and their abuse and their addictions or anything else, you can do it. You can succeed at your achievements and your goals. If you put your mind to it, if you want it bad enough. You can do it, because I did it with nothing. I had nobody. I did it on my own. So you can. Don't give up. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to have struggles. And I've proven that today. But if it's going to knock you down, and you need to get right back up, and you need to dust yourself off, and you need to rethink and say, I can do this. It's hard right now, but 6 months from now, I'm going to be in a better place. Or even 2 weeks from now, it's going to be better than what it is today. Tomorrow is a whole nother day. And if you keep that process and you keep that thinking, you're going to make it to where you want to go. So I've had a friend of mine make a nice little gift for you ladies. And I want you guys to get away from that gift as you wear them. If you're having a bad day, you're having a hard day, you're struggling, even if it's 5 years from now, to look at that and remember my story. And let them bracelets represent that you are strong, you are an independent woman, and that you can succeed, even when it seems completely hopeless. And remember my story. Okay?
That was a good story. So you still gonna go? You're not